Hi everyone, my name is Abby.
Hi, I'm Simona.
And welcome back to Stand Proud, Stand Jewish. So today we have an amazing guest, Sahar Tartak. Hi Sahar, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yay!
Hi ladies, it's such a pleasure.
So this is our first episode and we are very grateful to have you here. And we wanted to talk about your experience as being a Jewish student at Yale. So I guess we can get started. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to be an activist at Yale?
Yeah, of course. Again, thank you guys so much for having me. It's my honor to speak to future proud young Jews of our college campuses. I'm an upperclassman. I'll be out of here soon. So when I came to Yale as a freshman, I was really excited to be both a proud Jew and a Yale student. And I did not think those things were mutually exclusive. As a matter of fact, I thought that they went hand in hand. So, for instance, I was and am on the student board of our campus Chabad House, Chabad at Yale. I organized a talk with a Holocaust survivor whom I interviewed alongside the Chabad student board, challah bakes, a professor speaker series. My mom, who's a Persian Jew, even came up and cooked a huge Persian Shabbat dinner for hundreds of students. I really viewed being a proud Jew at Yale as two things that just made sense, and I didn't see a contradiction there. All of this changed after October 7th. It's no secret that college campuses proved to their students that sometimes campus meant contradiction, and that to be a proud Jew could make you a little bit less of a regular college student. Because we saw that regular college students, students in the hundreds, maybe even in the thousands, and Yale's a small school, generally supported, or largely supported the atrocities of October 7th, or at least could not condemn them outright. We saw student groups such as Yale's for Palestine saying that October 7th was not only an act of justified resistance, but a success that we should celebrate. And all of this made me realize that when I sit in a Yale dining hall, there are a number of students that don't think that I should be alive in that dining hall as a Jew, whether it's at Yale or whether it's a Jew on the Israeli border. So I came to realize that, and I said, me, this doesn't bother. I'm a proud Jew no matter what. My grandfather saw much worse in the Holocaust. My mother, like I mentioned, saw much worse in revolutionary Iran. Right. And okay, these are college students that think that I don't have a right to life, fine. But there are a lot of students at Yale who are Jewish and who see something like that, and they don't feel proud. They actually feel ashamed, and they begin to question themselves. And it's those students who need to know that they should not be questioning themselves. They should not be ashamed of being Jewish. They're part of an eternal tradition that has created so much of Western morality. The America that we live in right now, they have something to be proud of, and I wanted them to know that, and that's where my activism begins, and frankly, that's where it ends. It's important that Jewish students understand that they are part of the American tradition in an important and meaningful way, and that nobody can take that away from them, and that's not what America is.
Mm-hmm. And something important, I think, to ask, and you did see it firsthand, I don't know if you've seen progress, if you've seen maybe administration take steps forward, but it's safe to say that the protests you encountered or walked through, I don't even know if it's fair to call it a protest, these events aren't exactly peaceful. Based on what you've seen firsthand, what are they really like? Because what is the media not showing?
Of course, it's an excellent question, because I think what we need to understand is that these protests go beyond words and really cultivate an environment of violence. So I can describe to you what happened when I walked through the encampment or at least tried to walk through the encampment during the night of a huge anti-Jewish rally. Again, we're talking about calls for an intifada. At some point, students at Yale started outright calling for a free Palestine from the river to the sea, but also an Arab Palestine from the river to the sea. But in addition to words that call for violence outright, it was about violence on the ground. So I attended one of these rallies, stupidly with another visibly Jewish friend, a Hasidic friend of mine, who wore tzitzit and a yarmulke, and immediately we were mobbed by a line of students with their arms linked that followed us and blocked us from our freedom of movement throughout the rally. So as we tried to get away from the mob, they followed us, including when I walked away and circled around the rally. They continued to follow me. So anywhere in the vicinity of the rally, they mobbed and blockaded and really threatened us and intimidated us. So they waved their middle fingers in our faces. They took a boombox and started blasting rap music next to my friend's ear about woman in body bag, basically celebrations of terrorism, and accusing Israel of being all about the prophets. And calling for, Israel's death. One evening, they took down the American flag at the World War II memorial on campus that honors the lives lost in World War II by Yale students who fought bravely in those wars against authoritarianism. So yeah, there I am at this rally, being mobbed by a large group of violent masked students who claim to be marshals. I don't know what that means. They wear these yellow vests to look like they have authority, basically so that they can have authority to mob and follow you, until I was cornered and I was assaulted. And then when I tried to run after the masked tall student that assaulted me, they protected him and blocked my way once again. So that night I went to the hospital, not knowing who the assailant was. And so this really just it illustrates, again, a culture of violence, right? What else are you trying to do by cornering a student inside of a mob of 500 students or more who think that student has no rights to life? Mm-hmm. You're perceived as the enemy, and it justifies violence against you.
After this event took place, was Yale administration notified? Did they take any steps to say, okay, this has gotten out of hand? We need to kind of...
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. And I wish I could say the answer was yes, but they did not do anything meaningful afterwards. I immediately went to the police, and the police told me, listen, we take our orders from administrators who aren't even at the rally this evening. So even though you were assaulted, we can't shut it down because we don't have the administration here to tell us to, and because we don't even have enough manpower. There aren't enough cops. So this is how we saw the erectment of multiple encampments on the Yale campus, basically with an administration that was slow, irresponsible, and irresponsive. And their reasoning behind this, because I asked administrators, why are you doing this? They said, oh, well, we don't want to escalate. So basically they admitted that they're afraid of the mob, and so they let the mob escalate themselves until a Jewish student was brutalized on their own campus and did nothing about it.
How does that work like that? So administration has to give police that police can't just come in and stop it, even after what you reported?
Yeah, the Yale police, their bosses are university administrators.
Wow. So you mentioned something before that I honestly have a personal connection to. You were attacked by a masked assailant. And what I've been seeing all over the media is a lot of these protesters, especially that are protesting pro-Palestine, wear masks. But, protesters who are pro-Israel or who want to bring the hostages back, we don't wear masks. So I wanted to ask you, what do you feel about these protesters wearing masks? What is your opinion on them?
I appreciate the question, and it's such an opportunity to talk about the courage coming from Israel advocates who are, again, like myself, shunned, mobbed, and assaulted by their anti-Jewish counterparts, but nonetheless, we show our faces because we are not ashamed of ourselves.
Yes.
Contrast this with a movement that chooses to cover up so that they can have immunity when they brutalize and assault students and call for mass genocide of the Jewish people. Why else would you wear a mask? unless you had something to be ashamed of.
100%. And also following up, like if you go into a rally knowing you might end up assaulting someone, you would cover up. That being said, considering they were masked and they had all these authority vests on, was campus police or police like outside of the campus ever able to find this person?
Yes, so in the end, they did find him. He had wiped his identity from what I could find online, and all I was able to find was a thesis from another university. So he was a student of some sort, possibly a graduate, definitely not of Yale, which is, at least from the research I was able to do, there was really limited information about this person. That's crazy.
So it wasn't
you
even
bring in outside actors to assault Jewish students on your own campus, and yet nothing happens.
Right. Wow. I do want to focus more not only on you, but so many Jewish students now, especially since October 7th, are going through such tragedies or being mistreated. And I wanted to ask you, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing Jewish students on campuses today?
Yeah, so important. Obviously, the students that I'm most concerned about are Jewish students who feel self-doubt and shame because other kids say that Jews are bad, and they say, oh, maybe they're right. Maybe I need to reconsider my identity, and maybe I need to apologize for being Jewish and for having a right to life, and all these things. I think that's the biggest challenge, a sense of shame rather than a sense of pride. We have something to be proud of, but it's very hard to be proud when you want to be accepted by peers who don't think that you have a right to life, who think that October 7th was an act of justified resistance. And then you're a Jew and you're groveling at these people's feet, and for what? They will never accept you. So I think that's the biggest challenge and just the most painful thing I've seen here. I wish these students would know how precious they are and how above it they are, how above it all they are, that they shouldn't be groveling, and rather that they should be proud of themselves. They should be at Shabbat dinner every Friday night. That's not what we're seeing, but we're getting there. So I definitely have faith and hope.
And the biggest thing I wanted to ask you is, again, just combating like what we're seeing on social media, what we're being told. Something I keep seeing that appears on my social media is that these pro-Palestinian rallies, they don't care if you're Jewish. Their thing is Zionism, but what you're explaining is that they don't care if you're a Jew, an anti-Zionist, a Zionist, and a Jew. Like, do you think that it really is about Zionism, or period, they see a Jew, they don't want to have the conversation?
Right, so I think that what could be more anti-Jewish than saying the only type of Jew that we want in our protest is the Jew that says Israel and the people in it should be wiped off the map. It's a simple litmus test.
Yeah. I don't see that often, or I've never seen that before.
It's because something I just was seeing a lot, and also I agree with you, it didn't make much sense, but they were saying that like Jews are like not, they were kind of making it seem that like, again, you're, and what a lot of other students are claiming, that no, this has nothing to do about Palestine or Hamas, this is simply like anti-Semitism being shoved in our faces, and that the big combat I've been seeing was that, oh, it's about Zionism, but I think as we can all see, it's not about Zionism, it's about being, as you said, a proud Jew and a proud Yale student, and that's where the struggle is happening.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that it's worth like considering what they're asking of their Jews. So sure, there might be Jews on the side of the anti-Jewish team. This is Jewish history. I could list stories about Jews that participated in the Inquisitions, stories about Jews that participated in the Holocaust. And we can go back and back and back. But that doesn't make those movements less anti-Semitic. That makes those Jews who participated extremely lost.
And more to that point, how do you, because the big thing like now, like when I would maybe speak on social media or say something, the biggest thing that's thrown in my face, well, what about the Jews for Palestine movement? And that is a movement that we unfortunately are seeing is growing and kind of having strength. Like, what is your biggest combat to that? Like, what's your response to that?
Sorry, what did you, the what movement?
Jews, like Jews for Palestine, like Jewish students for Palestine. Across campuses.
Oh, of course. So again, I would say that we live in a world of identity politics. And so identity politics says, when it's convenient for me, I will use your identity to make a point. When it's inconvenient for me, I won't use it to make a point. So, for instance, none of the people saying, oh look, we have Jews for ceasefire, would also say that black people for the KKK is somehow less racist than the KKK. No, they would say, okay, this is extremely harmful. Members of this identity group are using their identity to do something that is extremely harmful. Why doesn't the logic apply to an organization that says, again, our intention is to wipe only one state off the map, only one people off the map, it's Jewish people living in the state of Israel. Because Israel is the worst country in the world. Now that's hard to justify, right? It's just hard to justify that Israel is exceptional when it comes to oppression and death. We can make comparisons to China and the Uyghurs. We can make comparisons to Russia and Ukraine. We can make comparisons to famine in Yemen, the Houthis. There are so many different, much more oppressive, authoritarian, and evil institutions, groups, states, whatever you want to call it, out there than Israel. Israel is on the good side of this world. And here's why that's clear. Israel is a free and diverse democracy where its Arab Israelis flourish and participate in its parliament. This does not apply to Iran, for instance, where the regime recently executed a young Jewish boy for self-defense. It just, again, the singling out of the only Jewish state, to me it's clear. And I think it's yet another example of Jews getting singled out like we've been throughout history. And now we're singled out in this way rather than that way.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I do want to focus on you're a student at Yale, and I'm sure and you're a proud activist. You advocate. I've seen you advocate for the Jewish people. I love that. When you're in conversations that are maybe a little bit too controversial for you, or maybe someone comes up to you, maybe respectfully or disrespectfully, how do you make these conversations make these people more informed instead of misinformed?
Sure. So I think something that's really important here is to understand that every actor in this game is a human being. And by the way, that goes all the way to Hamas, even when they act like animals, and all the way to the Hamas followers on a college campus who speak like animals. And again, even when people don't act, in a civilized and dignified way, it does not make them any less human, right? So if one of these people is willing to engage with me in a conversation, then I will engage. What happens is that they're not. So I sat in a pro-Israel, dialogue table on campus once, and a student came up to us and looked at us and said basically something along the lines of, you are evil, racist, Islamophobic, Israel will fall, and Palestine will be free. And I said, would you like some bamba? Because I was happy to have a conversation and happy to give him an Israeli snack or have, whatever. And my friend who was with me said, we can talk about this. He said, no, I don't want to talk, and he walked away. Okay, but that's how you're gonna act again. You're still very much a person, you're a human being, but you are a poorly behaved one, and we've done our best. Sometimes students do want to talk. I've had friends say, Sahar, I'm disappointed in you. Okay, send me what you're reading. I'm going to read your literature. So I read my friend's literature. What do I find? Holocaust minimization, ignoring the intifadas, ignoring the Jewish exile of nearly every country in the Middle East. It's such a level of misinformation, and there's so many gaps that I'm happy to fill them in. But there's only so many gaps you can fill in until you realize that the person that you're talking to maybe doesn't want to change their mind. So there's a number of those. And then there are those students who are willing to have the gaps filled in. And I've had great conversations with students at Yale who just ask questions like, Sahar, but there's so many civilian deaths in Gaza. And then I explain, okay, that's a great question. We should have a conversation about human shields. And we talk about human shields. So it goes both ways, right? There's a lot of people that are really curious and want to talk, and I love them, and I have great conversations. And then there are those that simply don't want to, and then okay, fine, you believe what you believe.
And I think that's an amazing thing that you see that there's people who do want to talk, but it always comes down, there's always going to be a group of people who just don't want to engage. They have their opinions and they're going to probably most likely have them. But something I wanted to talk about, and to any other college student who might be going through something similar with you on the level, something along those lines, how did you work with admin? You had to, I think, essentially have some sort of normalcy to return. How did you even decide you wanted to stay at Yale after something so awful happened? What were your steps with administration that made you feel enough to be once again the very proud and fierce Jewish student you are?
So it's an excellent question, and it unfortunately has nothing to do with the university administration, which has been largely unhelpful, if not harmful. So the school does not support Jewish students in a meaningful way. We see, for instance, that they cannot condemn anti-Semitism by itself. The school regularly released emails and messages saying we condemn anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, as though to equate the two and act like Arabs and Jews on campus are equally victims of the other's, oppression. This is not true. There is nothing comparable to Muslim or Arab students happening. Calls for mass Muslim or Arab death is just not happening at Yale. Thank goodness. That's one type of discrimination we're not seeing here. Whereas calls for mass Jewish death are happening. So the university does not authentically recognize what's going on with Jews at Yale. They can't say the words because it's controversial for them to admit that we have a problem here and it's an anti-Jewish problem. So with that, I'll say that what really motivates me to be here is that I care about the students on this campus, and that I have friends here that feel like they have a voice in me. And that's really important. And if that's something I can do, then it's an opportunity from God that I won't give up. Again, like I was saying earlier, I don't want my Jewish peers to feel ashamed or alone. I want them to know that they have something to be proud of, that they have wisdom dating back thousands of years to fall back on, and ancestors who are looking down on them smiling. And if I can share that message, then I will.
And based on you said through trying to have conversations, do you feel that maybe anyone at administration has given you that feeling of they're open to a conversation, or have they essentially just shut you down when you try to discuss what's happening?
With the university administration?
Yeah.
It was very hard, and I failed. I have another friend that really struggled, another frontline activist that really struggled to get a meeting with the university president. He made it very tough to meet with us. I don't know about this new president. I have high hopes. She might be excellent. But last year, it was hard to communicate with the administration, and when I did, I only got disappointing answers. So for instance, there was an incident in a major university dining hall, where students literally took leaf blowers and rained down fake $100 bills covered in fake blood to signify, profiting off of basically Jewish blood money as a result of Israel's war against Hamas. And I brought this up to my administrator, and she didn't even condemn it in this meeting. She said, well, that really might count as political speech. And because it's political speech, the most we could get those students in trouble for is littering. Okay, fine, I accept that. Those are your rules. But you can't even look at me and say, I hate that it's allowed for them to do that on campus. That's anti-Semitic. I'm sorry that you guys had to have $100 bills with blood rained on you while you were eating your lunch. You can't say that. They can't admit that there's a problem here in the first place. And thus, how can they solve the problem? If they can't say, from the river to the sea, Palestine is Arab, is a call for genocide, then how will they ever shut down, actual acts of violence against Jewish students? They don't even know how to admit that they are, for Jewish students and that they support Jewish students. I really, I hope the administration changes things.
Yeah, I think so too. And, taking the many experiences you've had as a Jewish student, looking ahead, what are your hopes for the future of Jewish and Israel advocacy on college campuses?
I hope it reaches every single Jew that they have a family on their campus and that they should be going to their campus Chabad house for Shabbat dinner. That's it. That would be such a success. The anti-Semitism will rage on, but so long as we're proud and loud, it can only go so far on their end.
Yeah. You've spoken a lot about Chabad. I would love to learn more. Can you tell us a little bit about that? At your campus specifically?
I would gladly share. So this is just the campus organization that has been there for me and my home since October 7th. When I didn't want to eat in those dining halls because I knew that my peers wanted me dead, I went and I ate in the campus Chabad house and hung out with the rabbi and his wife's kids. And I think every college student should know that that's their home on their campus. I actually am I reached out to a lot of other pro-Jewish students on other campuses and said, I think Chabad might be the most supportive organization for us, and they mostly agreed. It turns out that these Israel activists all see Chabad as the institution on the ground there to be of help and to defend proud Jewish life on campus. So it's just made such a difference. I mean, Persian Shabbat dinner with my mom, cooking dinner and 300 students, that's what these kids need. They need to see authentic, proud Judaism. And so that's where I found it. And I really hope you guys will do the same when you're in college, and so will your friends.
And I think that's important to note, how you said Chabad is there for every Jew. From my own experiences, I never grew up, religious. I was Jewish, but I didn't have those weekly Shabbats. I only went to synagogue for high holidays, if even. So, for me, I never had that connection. But after October 7th, there was a Virgil, and for some hostages that passed away, unfortunately. And I met people of Chabad, and they accept it. And this goes out to any, Jewish person who might be I don't know anything about the Torah. I don't know anything what's going on. And that was me. I was it's a shame to say I knew nothing. I truly didn't. And they will accept you with such open arms. They won't look down on you for being trust me, I was clueless. It's hard to beat me at the level I was at. So they truly will take you with open arms and embrace anything.
Yeah.
And like you said, even if you just want a safe place to eat, or if you really want to dive in and learn, seriously, Chabad is the place to go if you're a scared, confused, lost Jewish student who just needs a place to sit. So adding to that.
It's so not something to be ashamed of to not know. If anything, Judaism is about learning and becoming a better person, both in your actions and in your internal, spirituality. The less you know, the more progress there is to make, and that's a good thing. Progress is if we didn't have a mission on this earth, then we just wouldn't be alive.
That is true.
Yeah, I do want to, I wanted to ask you this question so we can, this is amazing conversation with you, and I want to ask this question to close. So for listeners who may not be aware of the challenges that Jewish students face or have been watching, what do you want them to take away from this conversation, and how can bystanders help if they felt safe and comfortable enough?
And one thing just to add on is also what do you see as steps of progress? What are Jewish students non-Jewish students and Jewish students can do to help one another? And more importantly, as difficult as it is, are there ways that you can still talk to admin and make progress with things like that?
Sure. So I think that the first thing to note is that nobody should expect to be able to do something big and radical immediately, right? Everything is a learning curve. So the first time you speak out for the Jewish people in the classroom, whether you're Jewish or non-Jewish, you're not going to do a good job. You're going to fail. It's fine. Fail and fail and fail until you get better. So what does that mean? That means having conversations with your friends, which will sharpen your skills. And that means writing articles on campus, which will sharpen your skills. And I will help you write your articles. Please send them.
I read what you wrote. The Yale Free Press one.
Thank you. So these are all skills that you learn with time. understand that and understand that you don't need to be perfect to make a difference on your campus. This applies, again, equally to non-Jewish students. Every person can be a light in this world, and it takes effort, but it does not take perfection. So don't expect perfection from yourself. Be a little bit more brave tomorrow than you were today. So that means, I'm going to speak up for Israel in conversation. I'm going to say one thing. Or I'm going to go to Shabbat dinner. Small choices. They'll take you far.
So the last thing I wanted to add is information, as I think you said, and it's just known, like knowledge is your like power tools. Do you have any sources or any things that you're following or reading that keep you the most up-to-date informed and have you like confident enough to argue on this?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. So I admittedly have a flip phone. So sometimes I get behind, and I think it's important not to get sucked into the rush of information. So I read like narrowly. Like I read about Israel. I'm trying to think of good outlets. At this point, frankly, I probably read more of like our student newspapers because I'm particularly interested in Yale. But like the Jerusalem Post is excellent. The Free Press is excellent. The New York Post is excellent. Yeah, I think those are some of my recommendations. Podcasts.
I know Alan Dershowitz, he's really like strong right now on college campuses. He's trying to, like he has good talks on how to combat it.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. And Barry Weiss's podcast is good. I forget what it's called. Maybe it's called Reason. She's good. Sam Harris is good on Israel. Like I've listened to him a little bit on that, but like frankly not on much else. Again, I try to keep it narrow, stay in my lane. I had another thought, but it's now lost on me. Is it a podcast or an outlet? I'll let you know.
I did like listening to Shai Davidai's podcast. I loved it. It was really good.
Yes, I've heard good things.
Yeah.
He's very impressive.
Hopefully we get him on this podcast one day.
God willing soon.
Yeah, God willing. But yeah, so again, thank you so much, Sahar, for joining us. It was really a great conversation. You are such a light to the Jewish community, and you are such a great influence for us, Jewish women who want to advocate for our community. So thank you so much.
Kind words. You guys inspire me, and you have nothing to be afraid of.
No, and it also just, like, I remember, like, honestly, I think in a way, it's awful even to phrase it, like, what happened to you as, like, it kind of sparked something in me. I was like, oh my God, because, I was like, I know this person. Like, I met this person. She's amazing. She's kind. She's a good person. Not that, like you said, everyone's human, but, like, you were a real person I knew who, like, oh my God, like awful, I remember I read the headline, I texted you, I was like, because again, social media, who knows? I was like, is this real? Are you okay? Like, what is happening? And then I was like, oh my God, this is like, and it's sad, it's so sad that you were the boiling point, maybe not for, like the fact that you made me realize that, like, oh wow, stuff is happening, because again, like, that was one incident way too many, and I think now, because of that story getting out, and people were realizing, okay, oh my God, so I think, in that sense, like what you did, and that you took something so negative and you were able to be like, guys, let's let's go to Chabad, let's do this, let's be strong and proud and Jewish no matter what. And that is amazing, the fact that you could take something so awful and make it so amazing.
That's so kind. You know what? I try to do that. I'm not sure I always succeed, but I'm glad this time you think I did.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And guys, tune in for the next episode.
And then we'll